Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to Firing Synapses. This is a show all about exploration. I will learn what makes you, you. This includes your hobbies, passions, whatever else drives an emotion. However, if you want to come on just to vent about what's currently bothering you, I'm perfectly fine with that as well. My goal for this show is for you to have a good time, learn something, and have the opportunity to talk about what you normally would not get a chance to share with others. Thank you, and enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. For all of you return listeners, I thank you very much. I appreciate all the love. For anyone who is new to this endeavor, I am your host, Matt. On today's episode, I am joined by a return guest. Some of you may remember him from either the Imagination with Math and Dice or Meta More and More episodes. The host of Dungeons and Chill podcast. Please, everyone, welcome back to the show, David. Hi, David. How are you?
Hey, it's so good to be back. Thanks for having me, man.
I'm glad you can come back. We'll talk about D&D in a little bit, I'm sure. But also on the show, completing the cast of Cosplay Stitch and Seam. Please, everyone, welcome to the show, Pannon and Mercedes, VFire. I mean, we can go by a couple of things. Hello, ladies.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
My pleasure. On today's episode, before we get into anything else, we're going to be talking about cosplay, how everyone got started, what you kind of look for in this as a hobby or a passion. And I'm sure we'll go into D&D and other things, but I kind of want to ask Mercedes, VFire, Vermilion Fire, where does that come from?
So the name actually comes from Vermilion is the red rocks of my home state, and fire is my passion for creativity. So that's where that came from. And that's what I use for my cosplay name, but sometimes it's weird saying, hey, VFire! And so I'm like, it's okay if you call me Mercedes too. As to where that came from, my dad may not be a video game nerd, but he loves cars.
Either that or he really likes Kittie.
That one I don't know.
Oh, so the Canadian all-metal metal group, there's two sisters in there, the singer and the drummer. I forget the singer's name, but the drummer was Mercedes.
Oh.
Sounds dope, and I need to know more about it.
Nice.
So, yeah, and it's one of those bands that, they're big in Europe where they have, like, one album in the U.S., but, like, 80 albums in Europe, and everyone loves them over there, like Guano Apes. Who knows about Guano Apes? Well, apparently Japan, because they're big in Japan.
Wow.
It's one of their songs too. So, but
That's
then
amazing.
I was thinking Vermilion. I was like, or that's Slipknot, because that's one of the two. We're talking about cosplay. The first time I was actually introduced to cosplay was when SciFi had their Heroes of Cosplay.
Mm-hmm.
Which that's maybe some of us that's our only experience with it, is that kind of when that show was on. Well, first of all, who remembers that show?
Yes,
Okay.
I was in an episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the background. Like, we got recorded, but they didn't use our footage.
Oh, okay. So then that answers my questions of how far involved were you when that show was on? Well, very apparently.
I was just watching each episode being like, I need to see more.
So,
being like, that's real, that's what? But it was interesting.
yeah, like, when I was on the episode they were filming, it was at a convention called Anime Matsuri, which is in Texas. And my friends and I were there for World Cosplay Summit competition, because they were having, like, a finals competition there, in addition to their regular cosplay contest. And so it was it is in one of my cosplay horror stories, because it did cause some some issues with, like, the backstage and when people could access the green room and their own materials. And it I don't know. It was interesting. Like, there are some people that are in the show or have been in the show that I know in person, and like they are not the way they are portrayed in the show. It's good to remember that it's a TV show. This is acting. These people are not like.
It fed a lot on like the drama side of things because that's what TV thinks people want, and they don't realize that the cosplay community is a lot kinder than what they portrayed it as.
Yeah. I did think it was really funny because like in the episode they showed like another team winning the cosplay contest, and it was funny because it was actually a couple of friends of mine that did win it, and they were like, we weren't in the show and we won the contest. but you know, it's that kind of staging where it's like none of that is real. Like it gives you a taste of what cosplay is. It shows you some really cool costumes. It shows you a little bit of what conventions are like, but like any reality TV, it should definitely be taken with many grains of salt.
They have a story they want to tell, and they told it the way they wanted to.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I think I mentioned this one of the times when David was on the show, but one of my favorite shows is 90 Day Fiancé.
Oh yes.
And look,
oh boy.
Most of the spin-offs too, although I am behind because right now I'm kind of trying to catch up on Critical Role, and I'm about 100 episodes behind. So I got some time, But I watch that show, and it's the editing sometimes is completely they lose continuity. I can't remember that word.
Continuity.
Yeah, there we go. Where, you know, they'll be like have a full glass, it'll be empty glass, there'll be a full table of, you know, barware. I'm like, this is all supposed to be continuous, and that's not how the real world works. But I still watch that show, and we, you know, my boss and I, we talk about it Monday, Tuesday morning of, hey, did you see what happened to you know, Paul, the Carini? Did you see what happened to Darcy? You know, and the whole slew of, oh, you got to go back to season 3 when, you know, they're in the desert, and, you know, it's like.
I still get texts from my boss from my old job for him going, okay, so this episode of Critical Role. And I'm like, dude, well, no
I don't even go here.
I don't even go here anymore. Does no one listen to you at work? I mean, I'm happy to.
Oh. Sad day.
But also everything I know about Critical Role is through my friends.
Yeah, like it's
I love it. I think it's great. I can't wait for the comic books to come out in physical form and like purchase every single one of them. But like, oh my gosh, I can't listen to it. It's just too long. But ow! I just hit my elbow. I'm so sorry.
You don't have to apologize to me. I didn't feel that, so it wasn't too funny now, was it?
Boo.
Funny bones.
Damn, I need my laugh track. I had my my tablet in another room. I forgot to hook that up, but maybe I'll put it in post.
There we go.
So, can any one of you, can you, for the people at home that don't know the difference or what cosplay is, how is cosplay different from just like going to a Target or wherever, the Halloween shop, and picking up something off the shelf to wear it?
It can be, honestly, like cosplay is like as involved or not involved as you want to be. So some people will definitely buy costumes off of a rack, and it doesn't make them any less a cosplayer than someone who spent, 900 hours hand stitching something. It's a broad, all-encompassing hobby, and I think I hate to get into like this elitism that you have to meet XYZ parameters for it to be quote unquote cosplay. Because if you're having fun, if you're doing costumes, you're cosplay.
It's kind of the intent in the matter of what's your intent. Are you going to go to a costume party? Then it may not necessarily be cosplay. But are you going to go to a cosplay party? Yeah. Are you going to buy a trench coat and boots and be Neo from the Matrix? And kind of feel cool and awesome for a little while. That could be cosplay as well. It all depends on what's your intent behind it. So go into Target, buy the thing, or buy all the materials and spend 10 times as much money and hundreds of hours in making it yourself. That, it doesn't really matter as long as you call it cosplay.
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people, when they think of cosplay, they think of the crafters and the ones who spend all that time going in the high detail, but like that's not the whole thing. That's only one facade, one side of what cosplay is. Going out there and purchasing a costume, whatever you want to call it, it's still part of that, as long as, like David said, your intent is, you're going to go and have fun.
So if you're kind of like just starting out, like, I want to be more of Arya from Game of Thrones, or I want to be this person or that person, you could start at a costume shop, and that's kind of like your base, and then you could build up from there. Is that kind of what some people do when they're starting into this hobby?
Yeah, like it really depends on where you want to go with it. So some people are excited just to wear the costume and play as the character. They're in it for more, like, say, the improv and acting the part. Other people may be interested in competition, and that's where you get a lot of people who will just pour hours and hours and hours into costumes, do their historical research, do like metalworking and leather crafting and ancient sewing techniques, all kinds of different things, because they want to have a specialized product, because they want to use it for, competition or filming or whatever they're doing with it. So it just... cosplay has so many branches of like why people devote lots of time and energy into it. So it's really depends on where you want to go. And I think that's one of the best parts about cosplay, is you don't have to limit yourself to only one. You can explore all kinds of aspects of how it brings you joy.
Yes. And like years ago, I made my mom and myself Bellatrix Lestrange costumes. And what I did is I went to the Halloween store and bought us both the same, I think it was, I don't remember which character, but it was a long dark dress. And I took that home and just modified the heck out of it until it looked more like Bellatrix Lestrange's outfit. And we both wore those and were super happy. And, we got to play our favorite villain. And, and it didn't cost a whole bunch. That's what we got to be for Halloween. And, we were happy with that. It doesn't have to be a $900 project that you put, 900 hours into. It could just be $20 that you spent at the craft store and maybe a couple of hours, and boom, you got yourself a cosplay.
Now, in the Pannon, you talked about competition. What how do I want to word this? When you're going into competition, is there like multi-tier, like difficulty levels? If you were like, this is like the beginner version of it, so no one's going to expect top notch. You spend 1,200 hours on just your boots, and you just work up from there. I mean.
There are definitely different like competition tiers. So it really depends on the contest you want to enter. So if you go into, I'm just spitting like a run-of-the-mill cosplay contest at your local convention, is probably going to have at the very least a beginner and an advanced section. So you're not putting someone who's just barely getting into the hobby up against someone who has done it for years and years and years. That said, it's always important to like make sure you know the rules and what's going on, make sure you know what to expect. And we actually have done like a few episodes on how to prepare for your first contest, what to expect in a judging room. Because some people don't know, like the first contest I was in, I didn't know that the judges were going to want to come inspect all over the costume and see how I had crafted it to make sure, of the level of quality it was. But then you'll also have higher stakes competitions. There are some where you're basically up against entirely master crafters, maybe even people who do it professionally in different like theatrical fields, in cinema, in all kinds of theatrical reproductions. So it really depends on what you want to throw yourself up against. My gosh, I've been doing this for like way longer than I'd like to admit. Since about 2001. And so in that time I've done about, gosh, I don't know how many I've been in, but I've got like 50 some odd awards from different competitions in the States. But there's also competitions that go like around the world, like World Cosplay Summit, Clara Cow Cosplay Cup, C4. So you're not just competing against people who are local, you're also competing against other countries.
So there's almost like a World Cup of cosplay, if you will.
It's kind of like Cosplay Olympics.
It's intense. I watch it every year, and I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Then is it all tight in there? Because I mean, I've only seen like small, like 2 and 4 person tents.
Yeah, it is all types. So with World Cosplay Summit, now I know they look like tents sometimes. But with World Cosplay Summit is a 2-person competition. So you have to enter in pairs. And anything you bring on and off the stage has to be just those 2 people. So any special effects you do, any costume changes,
you don't get stage ninjas.
You don't get people to help you on and off with most of it. Then they have like solo competitions where it's really just like people showing off these beautiful costumes they've made. They sometimes have like a skit, a performance aspect. It really depends on the contest. And then I have seen like some larger group competitions. When we did the Clara Cow cosplay contest in the Netherlands, they had a contest specifically for multiple countries coming together to do groups, which I thought was really cool. So they did like, we'd have like Italy and Spain and Denmark or something together in one group. And it was really interesting to see like how people would come together for that.
So you said for like the duel competition, there's not really a limit of what you can do, only that those 2 people can have to bring it on or off the stage. Is that what you just said?
Right. There are more specific restrictions with World Cosplay Summit. You have to, like, your set can only weigh a set amount. Costumes can only weigh a set amount. You can only have X amount of props. You can only your performance has to be this exact amount of time. So there are specific restrictions, but basically you are responsible for anything that goes on and off the stage.
So how do you travel with all these like elaborate pieces of costume or cosplay? Like if I say something wrong, forgive me. Like I said,
you're fine.
You travel carefully. That's just the key. Carefully.
I mostly drive, but I haven't been anywhere where I've needed to fly yet.
It really depends on the competition. If I'm doing something local, I can go big and crazy, and as long as I can carefully get it in and out of my car, it should be fine. But for international stuff or even out of state, I usually have to figure out how all of the pieces can fit into a suitcase, and that does change how you view the competition.
Car if I'm driving.
Or you get a friend who can drive it over, or you can ship a package ahead of time to the hotel you'll be staying at, and then assemble it there. I know a lot of the cosplayers who do like the big armored pieces or mecha or like anything that's huge and on stilts in many pieces. They do have to deal with shipping or having friends cart things over, or people get really creative on how to get costumes in and out of a hotel or a competition.
You forget it halfway to your drive to the con, and then you have your amazing friend overnight ship it to you, so that way it makes it to the con the next day.
Speaking of D&D, my D&D friends are the best and amazing, and overnight shipped my costume that I left, so they're amazing.
Now, how far into the trip do you get and you realize, that very important piece that I cannot go without? I left that at home.
How far were we on that trip, Mercedes? It was We were at least in Colorado at that point.
Yeah, so that's about 3 hours.
Jeez.
3 or 4. No, 4.
It was
5
more than,
hours.
yeah, I
Oh
think
my
it was
gosh.
4 or 5 because it's
4
an
or 5
8-hour.
hours, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we were mostly there.
The thing that Mercedes was missing was like 90% of the costume.
Mhm.
Like it was the
Like,
theme of the costume.
Like, I could not go on stage without that. Like, all I had with me were the tights. That was it.
And you had the guitar.
And the lyre. I had the guitar and the lyre.
Yeah.
I had my props. I just had none of the frilly stuff that was supposed to go on top.
Which is why it's so important to make lists and pack with enough time.
I had a list and I hung it up because I was like, I'm not going to let it get wrinkled. And then I had to have it shipped and it got wrinkled anyways.
All I had on me was, hello, my name is tag. That's all I had.
Pretty much. Just like, this is my cosplay.
It's all theater of the mind. Use your mind. This is what it looks like. I'll tell you.
Imagine how this. Oh, I had the crown too.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yes. Oh, that would have been a very different cosplay on stage.
So does that happen often, or do you say, look, I make this list, I'm gonna check it 3 times, and I still have gone 5 times without, this major part of my my outfit?
It really depends. Like for some of those major competitions, like at least like leaving the country sort of competitions, like usually I can spend a couple days to make sure everything is in its place. A lot of the time with international competitions, you'll have already competed in it once, so you should have most everything done. And so you're not scrambling to finish things last minute or adding things. I mean, you might be adding things. But basically, like all the main pieces should be already finished.
Yeah, you won't be misplacing anything.
It's less of a scramble of trying to get everything done and then pack it. But I don't know. Like I almost feel like every convention I have forgotten something. Like whether it's a major like deal breaker costume contest ending piece or just hey, can I borrow an extra like hair tie? It's usually something.
Yeah, I always forget something. It just never fails. That's why Sadie always brings backup stuff where she's like, yeah, I know you're probably gonna forget this or this or this, and she's amazing, and that is why I call her my manager. So
She kind of is, yeah.
She really is. She also keeps my head on straight at conventions. It's like, okay, this panel, this is the one that you wanted to go to today. Do you still want to go to it? And I will tell her yes or no based on my anxiety levels. So
nice, yeah.
But she'll remind me that that's what I wanted to do, and I was really excited about it.
Is there any type of like a competition series type of thing where, like, if you're going as, let's say you're going as Link, and this is Link from stage 1, and you got to go through 2 or 3 stages where you got to keep the same theme, and like they will discredit you if you add things or take away things. Is there anything like that?
It really depends on the contest. It's usually less like elimination rounds like that. It's more usually what it is there's a craftsmanship portion and a stage portion. And a lot of the contests will judge you only on craft, and some will judge you on both combined. It just depends, which is why you want to make sure you read the rules. But also a lot of contests vary when it comes to what they will be sticklers about with the costume, whether they want you to be precisely accurate to how it was in game or in whatever canon it was, or if you are able to put your own unique spin on it, if you're able to do like a fan variation. You'll see a lot of cosplay related fan art Lately, especially like on Patreon, designers will draw up like, here is this character, like Harley Quinn. And they're like, okay, well, this is Harley Quinn in a Victorian ball gown. This is Harley Quinn in a future cyberpunk setting, and they're not official versions, but they are like very detailed, very unique, stylized versions, and they're obviously that character. Hey, there she is. But it depends on the contest and whether or not they allow those kind of variants. Most that I've been to do, as long as you can provide references of what inspired you or what you're going off of, because accuracy is a big part of the competition, and they need to have something to look at to be like, oh, you do look like this thing you're trying to portray.
So you're going for accuracy in that, hey, this reminds me of this character.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Now, David, when you go out and you're making a costume, if it's allowed, do you try to make the character true to life, I want to say, true to how it's portrayed in the comics or in the movies, or do you like to put your own spin on things of, this is how they portray it, if I was in charge, this is how I would do it, so that's how I'm going to do it?
So I'd probably go based off of source material a little bit more so. Some of my two favorite cosplays that I have done, I did a character from the Dresden Files series by Jim Butcher, and there's not a lot of actual like physical representation of the character that I was doing, so I kind of got to do my own spin on it. And then one time a group of friends of mine wanted to do a Justice League hipster group cosplay. So it was all of our, it was really great. It was really great. So we got to do a, we had a hipster Batman, we had a hipster Superman where it was the S cut out, but it was in plaid. So instead of the red and yellow, it was a V-neck shirt with the plaid, and I sewed that on with like yellow strings or yellow thread, so
nice.
It really popped. And then for me, I made hipster Flash with a backpack record player. With the Flash symbol on the record on my back. It was fantastic. I loved it. Skinny jeans, red V-neck shirt, thick rimmed glasses. It was the works. So if I can customize it to my way, I will. But if I'm going to be entering a competition, I'm working on a cosplay for the Hollow Knight right now, based off of fan art. I'm going to follow that as close to the T as I possibly can. Maybe add a few things, but I want to make sure that if I'm going to add something, it's not in conflict.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. So like in the drawing, you don't see any chains. But in the game, the character just like fell off of chains. So I thought it'd be really cool if like on his back, you have these chains kind of coming off. Not in the drawing, but it makes sense within the context that I could then justify to a judge later on.
Yeah. I want to elaborate on that a little bit too, because I like both. I've done hyper realistic, true to the game, try to make it as real to life as possible with my costumes. That's like my main goal with all of them. And a lot of times when I'm looking at a costume, especially if it's from something super cartoony, I will change things to make it more real to life. I will adjust things, but I always back it up in my documentation when I'm entering a contest to be like, this is why I made this decision, and it's up to the judges to decide if they agree on that or not, of course. Like, for example, a project I'm working on right now is the Drifter from Hyperlight Drifter. If you haven't played that game, it's amazing. Yes, David, I have another obsession.
Another obsession to talk about during our podcast.
Yes, I will. I'm trying to refrain from that. Sadie and I are going to start a game podcast so I can talk about games on there instead. For the Drifter, that game's all pixel art, and it's all like, it's not hyper detailed, and like the main character. This is his figure right here.
That looks so great in an audio format, Mercedes.
I know, so yes. But anyone wants to audio format wants to look at this guy's figurine online, it's still very simple for changing it from pixel art to this. I've looked at it. I'm like, okay, I've looked at what the setting of the game is. It's fantasy / sci-fi kind of mixed together. And I'm like, how can I put that into this costume and create something that's hyper realistic? This is the most that I've done of my own design, where I've like added my own creative flair to it, but I've done it based off of years of like, I'm trying to make this thing realistic. I'm trying to make that realistic. And now I'm kind of putting it into this thing. I don't know, we'll see how it goes, because when I design my own stuff, it doesn't always turn out great. But we'll see on this one. But I think it's fun. And I love, as a judge, I love seeing that in costumes. I love seeing it when somebody puts together a character that they are absolutely in love with, and they're like, okay, so this is what they did in the game, but I felt like this was a little more realistic for the character because of X, Y, and Z. You can see their passion for it and understand why they made those decisions. And then after that, instead of looking at like the, accuracy to the game, I start looking at, okay, how well did you execute that then?
Like a new game comes out, how long after that game comes out or the trailers do you go, I need to make the hero in this game. I have to do that. It looks awesome. I need to make Hellblade or whatever,
I have a great response for this.
Oh, man.
The playable demo for Resident Evil 8 Village came out, and in less than 12 hours, there are hundreds of Lady Dimitrescu cosplays in less than 12 hours. If there is a internet phenomenon like what was it? Princess Peach Bowser? What was that one called?
Oh yeah.
Bowsette.
Yeah, that one hit the internet like a flood. And if there's something that like people really want to see, they will see it. One of the cosplayers that I follow on YouTube, he scrubs through a trailer, and then he'll go to like the action figures and he goes, so I'm gonna make this prop that you saw for 0.3 seconds. I know because I counted in this frame of the trailer for the new Endgame thing. And then I went to the toys and I looked at this and that. And then like 6 hours later, he has the prop almost to the T.
Nice.
So it depends on like who's making it, what kind of time they have, what's the fan reaction, how do I hit this on my SEOs so that way like I get more people to see my page.
Horizon Zero Dawn wasn't even out, and they released a cosplay guide to Aloy, and people ate that up. Like I still have copies of that on my computer.
I know with some of them too, some cosplayers will get an early release of the designs, especially if they are going to be like a booth model for when they release the content. I know they did that with I think Overwatch. I think they had some of the models for it. Like it was released ahead of time so that they could make a cosplay for it and, really spend some time on making it as accurate as they could. So
PlayStation even did a docuseries with all with a bunch of the Aloy cosplayers that
that's so cool.
Made their costumes before the game came out. And I was just like, past obsession. Okay. Still is an obsession. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's not past. It's still an obsession.
That's just my hyperfixation, and it will always be slightly a hyperfixation.
So those companies like Square Enix or, Blizzard will reach out to whatever, like Evil Ted, did you say, from the Rubber episode?
Yeah.
And they'll, hey, we have these characters. It hasn't released yet, but we know that, you guys do awesome work. So here's what it is. Make something. Here, make this. Is that what companies do?
Yeah.
I mean,
Kamui Cosplay's making something right now. That gem gun from something. Oh, I can't remember.
It's some game that's not even out yet.
Yeah, and she's just trying to make it like out of materials that are easy to find and things like that, and it looks amazing.
Yeah.
But she's doing that for a game company.
I think it's definitely become like a part of marketing, because knowing like how much people want to cosplay it, how much people are obsessed with the character is going to also correlate with how much people are going to want to play or buy the game, play or buy the game, or buy merchandise about the game, or, watch let's plays of the games. It just is like its own little Ouroboros of
It really is
advertising and hype and all kinds of stuff.
There's even some cosplayers that I've seen where the video game company will reach out to them and say, hey, we want to design a character. We want to work with you to design this character because like
nice.
you are more or less what we had in mind. The first thing that comes to my mind is Lollipop Chainsaw, where they worked with Jessica Negri, who's a pretty big cosplayer, to like work together to design the character. So that way it was like almost this exclusively perfect cosplay for her because she helped design the character style, the outfit, and then they designed some of the movements and the weapon and all this other stuff. So it's getting to the point where it almost seems like it's good PR if you can just tell a bunch of people to like, hey, cosplay this. Borderlands 3 did the same thing that Horizon did, is just flood the internet with all of their character designs. And it's like, here is this cosplayer that we played to dress up as the new version of Tiny Tina that, I just hit release. And then like Twitter exploded with all of their individual designs for all the new characters and whatnot.
Yup. I love those. Kamui's working on the Grim Marrow from Outriders game.
That's right.
Nice.
And I think it was the Glue episode that you were talking about how Joanne's and Michael's kind of are starting to get a cosplay section in their, stores where it makes it, here's, paints or foam or whatever to make it easier as a stepping stone to start into.
Oh yeah. I think it's easier today than it has ever been to get started with cosplay. Because back in the like 90s, early 2000s, when I was first getting into it, the only thing I had was An America magazine, which took pictures at conventions of cosplayers, and they were just in a little corner in the back section, and they were like, look at these cosplayers. And I was like, that's so cool. And then like I had to try to like figure it out based on my very limited knowledge and what I could scrounge up. But now you have like foam and Warbler and different thermoplastics and tools and patterns and just so many resources that are at your fingertips. And not only that, if you go to like YouTube, like Skillshare, like all of these different like tutorial based videos, you can learn how to make them. Like people will walk you through step by step. Chances are if you're cosplaying something that's not brand spanking new, someone will have done a tutorial of it, or someone will have chronicled their build so you can at least see what to do and what not to do. So it's less of a like learning by failing as much as I felt like I did back in the day. Which I think is really nice, and it makes it a lot more accessible to new people who are excited about the hobby.
You mentioned Warbler. What is Warbler?
It is magic. It is
go for it, Mercedes.
It is a plastic. I hate it. I'm in a love-hate relationship with Warbler. It is a thermal plastic, so you can heat it up and essentially mold it like clay. It gets sticky, it sticks to itself. You have to heat it up quite a bit so you can burn your fingers. David is holding up an example of a cool mask he made with it. Don't stick it right on your face, David?
I was gonna wait. You can finish your section, and then I'll tell my cosplay horror story that we like to mention on the show.
Sounds good. But like it's wonderful. I like using it to like sandwich over foam because it makes foam a lot stronger, more durable. It will melt in your car though if you leave it out on a hot day. And then there goes all your armor.
No, then you can just be a transformer. You're like, no, this is a car now.
There we go.
Drive that into the judge's station. I'm sure it'll.
Yes, like here's my costume. It's now part of the seat. It's super cool stuff. It's got so many different like uses for it, and the point that like the scraps are usable because you can just heat it up and create another like piece of Warbler out of it by just melting all the pieces together or just sculpt it into something. Like I love how usable it is, and it doesn't leave any scraps that you have to throw away.
So it's almost like Play-Doh. Like you'll take this section off, you'll form or whatever, and whatever's left, you can just mush it back together and make a new entity.
As long as it's heated up, yes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like I have a bag of scraps here in the room, but it's just like this big and it's just full of just scraps from it.
Yeah, they're like with cosplay, a lot of products fall under the like umbrella term thermoplastics, which are, like Mercedes was mentioning, plastics that like become malleable once you heat them up. There are some, like Warbler is known because it is blended with like a wood fiber. So it has a little bit more stiffness to it. Whereas if you buy something like friendly plastic, it's little tiny beads that will all melt together. So it's the same kind of thermoplastic base, but the way you sculpt them is different and their rigidity is different. There's another one called Thibra that's more like the consistency of silly putty when it's moldable. It's really stretchy. It's really gooey. There's another one back in the day we had Wonderflex, which is a thermoplastic that has coated like a very thin fabric. So you're kind of working with or I guess that was Foss shape back in the day, but it's basically fabric with thermoplastic. So it has more strength to it. So it depends on what your project is, how thick it needs to be, how much weight it needs to bear. And yeah, Warbler is just like the most known brand name. It's kind of like Kleenex, even though they're like tissues.
Yeah. So to tell my story, for the audio audience, I have this Nightwing mask that I have made, and this was like really at the beginning of my cosplay stuff because I like to like do small projects and see like, hey, what is it that I like, what's working well for me. And if you look at it, it has very specific dimensions, and those dimensions are fantastic because this is molded exclusively to my face. This will not fit anybody else, and I've got a really crooked nose, and this follows my crooked nose beautifully. But as everyone was saying, you have to get this very warm, almost hot to the touch. And I remember I was like, all right, well, this isn't going to be so bad because I could touch it with my fingers, and my fingers, detected, yeah, that's hot, but that's not that hot. Thing is that your face and your fingers detect heat very differently. And I remember I pressed it to my face, and you could see like it's on my nose, it's just around my eye. And I pressed it down and I let it cool. And it was pretty hot. It was really intense. And I remember going, ooh, this hurts a little bit more than I was expecting, but I can keep it on my face without any like spirit glue or any strings because of the way that, again, it's formed perfectly to my face. But when I took the mask off, which one hurt a little bit because some of the hair kind of got stuck to it. There was a perfect Nightwing shaped domino mask sunburn on my face for the next 24 hours.
I feel like I gotta take this to work.
Yeah, I did it on a Sunday afternoon, and I worked the next morning, and I was like,
"Oh no,
this is gonna be weird."
Oh boy.
Now, like I said, I listened to last couple of episodes, and you had the sticky the episode. I want to know why this to that missed the joke of when you said put leather. You're going to bound leather and metal. How did they miss the Rob Halford joke in there?
I don't know it.
No. Rob Halford he's a known metal guy. He's a homosexual. He'd always wear like leather like harnesses and stuff like that. So
nice.
Obviously, if you don't know the reference, yeah, it's not gonna.
That would be why.
If you know who Rob Halford is, or if you look him up later, it'll make perfect sense to you.
I'm sure there are some people like, how do you not know this person?
I know. You guys failed.
I'm like making a list of things I gotta look up now.
Definitely sounds like you need to do that one at home, not while you're on your work network.
So, if you correctly want to put Warbler on your face, what do you like? Put a Well, okay. I mean, you did put it correctly on your face, but then you also had a nice glowing outline for the next half a day or so. But if you don't want to permanently burn your face for 12, 18 hours, what do you put something else under it, or
go Go for it, Pannon.
I was gonna say, what some cosplayers will do will actually make a cast of their face in like plaster or whatever, and it keeps the dimensions so they can put hot things on it. They can do latex work. They can do just about anything that you would not want stuck on your face for several hours at a time while it dries or cools or is too toxic, etc. It makes it a lot safer.
So you make something that is plaster Paris or something that is more safer to skin contact, and make a probably a negative of that, and then make a positive from there, and then you can slab on whatever hot thermoplastic that you want without, you know. Hey, look, I'm Wonder Woman for the next 18 hours. Take it,
Yeah. So occasionally on our channel, we will do some live streams. And before we went into lockdown, I was like, hey, if I buy all the materials, would you guys be willing to make a plaster of my face? Like, that would be really helpful. And then lockdown happened. I was like, well,
dang it.
That'll have to wait.
I got all the vaccine now, though.
All right,
oh
great.
yeah, congrats.
You can come over.
When I worked with this company that makes mascots for major league sports companies, we would do that for a lot of the actors who played the mascots. We would take a cast of their head while they were they had to come visit our company, and then they could fly home to whatever state they were from. But that gave us something to work off and make sure that the character head fit them perfectly. And they were, I would say that the Masketeers were way more satisfied when we had something that could fit them so closely.
Now, Pannon, you talk a lot of knowledge. Are you, I mean, I don't really know how else to put it, but like everything I've thrown at you, you've had a clear cut answer to. So is this kind of what you do for a living, or are you just been so involved in it that, you know, you've collected horror stories and the opposite of horror stories, you know?
Well, like I said, I've been at it since like the late 90s, early 2000s. So that's over 2 decades worth of knowledge that I'm drawing from, and a lot of like learning by failing and working my way up.
You also get asked these questions a lot.
I do get asked these questions pretty frequently. But I have had jobs that I got because of cosplay. I don't currently work in anything related to sewing or crafting, which is actually kind of a relief for me, because I feel like I was kind of burning the candle at both ends when I was. I mean, it would be great if someday I could be employed in just doing my own works, but most of the works I've done have been on the creative end for other companies. So it's less personally fulfilling that way, I guess, and that's why I haven't stuck with it. Whereas cosplay, I always want it to be something that I do for fun, and it's not fun when you feel burned out creating all the time, because all your stuff's going into making a living.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have definitely gotten work because of my history with cosplay. I have used cosplay on like portfolios for when I did work making major league mascots. And then again, when I worked for a company that did a lot of like gowns for photography and for like red carpet events and things like that. So
I worked with her at that one. That's
yeah,
the
you
only
did.
job I've ever gotten that cosplay got me the job in. Otherwise, like,
Yeah,
I do teaching and game dev stuff.
yeah.
So in the last year, since last February when COVID started, like, has your cosplay stuff very much diminished, or are you kind of only doing personal stuff now? I mean,
I feel like this is a like 1-by-1 question, because I think we all have kind of a different answer for it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
we'll make the rounds, but since you're last to talk, you're first to talk now, so.
Sure. It's actually like a little bit depressing, because I went to like, I always like to review my goals for the previous year when I'm going into the next one. And I was looking at the costume goals that I had for 2020. And I had like 7 or 8 big builds that I was really excited for. And I feel like a big part of cosplay is attending conventions. It's not true for everyone. There are definitely cosplayers who thrive in an online-only format on platforms like TikTok and Facebook and Instagram. And um, I don't know. That's something I struggle with. If I don't have a deadline, if I don't know I'm going to get the reward of going to hang out and meet with friends or enter in a competition, I have a really hard time adhering to a timeline. So I think I finished 2020. I completed maybe 2 or 3 costumes the whole year. And that's very much less than usual. I usually do
For
anywhere
Pannon,
from
that's a lot less.
10 to 20, sometimes close to like 2 a month.
See, and my average is 2 or 3 a year.
Yeah. Like it depends. Like, and not all of them are crazy intense builds. Like some of them are just like this character wears like a casual shirt and tie and slacks, and like I made them because I have a body that's harder to fit, but it was something I could do in a weekend if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it has very much affected my productivity. I have done more like weird, like not weird, but like I've done more little arts and crafts than I've done actual costumes. So I've put my desire to craft into learning tiny little new things. Like I learned a lot of new, embroidery stitches. I learned a lot of new embroidery stitches. I learned a lot of new handicrafting, like some little leather working, things like that.
Mercedes, what about you? How's this last 12, 13 months changed how you normally do things?
Well, I put myself against a wall, I think. So I'm one of my jobs right now is a part-time teacher. I'm the technology teacher at an elementary school. And so when lockdown happened, everything went online. And so I was like, okay, I got to make videos. I got to make how-tos. I'm like, the kids are going to want to watch more videos. And then I also have to do like online teaching with them. And then like only one kid got on.
Oh, dang.
I am just the technology teacher. Of course, they don't want to do the extra work and, come join me for STEM stuff. But, well, what else? I'm supposed to be the cool teacher. Come on. So like I put a lot of work into like video editing and things like that, and then ended up picking up a summer job that is slowly going to become my full-time job come this next summer, actually, teaching kids how to code, which has meant that a lot of my free time outside of that was spent learning the code that I needed to teach them.
Stay one chapter ahead at all times. That's all you need.
Like a DM,
right? Yeah. And it was just very interesting because like I was hired on to help create curriculum because like my degree is in game development. So all my cosplay crafting just kind of got put on hold aside from like Pannon, I'm going to learn something new. I'm going to do something small, learn something new. And so I only got one costume done last year, and I technically finished it in January of this year because I was going to Yellowstone to take pictures of it by the hot springs and all that. So that was super fun, super expensive, super fun though. I can't wait to see those pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll come out soon. Just their photographers are very busy right now, but that's okay. I'll be patient. Worth it. But yeah, so things slow down for me. But again, I only make 2 or 3 costumes a year. And also having a deadline does help me actually get them done as well. So like the January deadline of like, I got to get Ikri finished so that I can go take photos of her. That helped me get her actually finished. And then I'm using the Talk cosplay to try and get the Drifter done. If I don't make it in time, that's fine because I'll still have the Drifter cosplay done at some point so I can go take some epic photos of them. So, yeah.
David, what about yourself? How's the lockdown affected your cosplay?
It's been terrible. I'm not afraid to admit, like, it hit my depression real bad. Like, it was really difficult at times. We also opened our doors to some friends who were going to be in complete isolation, and it made it harder for me to like want to be in my own space, if that makes sense. Not that it was like an uncomfortable situation at all. It's just like, all right, you're here. I have to be a host for the next who knows how long you're here, right? And then by the time that I finally started getting into the crafting of the cosplay, it started moving into the steps that are really messy, that need to be done outside, and it's cold outside. Here in Utah, it's cold. I'm not a big fan of the cold. Not as cold as other places, I know, but I am a sissy when it comes to how cold it gets. And
I hate the cold.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
So mostly my creative outlet has been writing for an audio project I've been working on. And if you follow my Instagram, I've been trying my hand at making handmade dice. And that's been where a lot of my passion is. So I have a half costume, not even half. I'd probably say like 1/8 of a costume ready to go. And then I just on a whim and a recommendation, when my hair was all silver and gray, I did a gender bend cosplay of Sophie from Howl's Moving Castle. That was a lot of fun.
It's so cool.
Was that this year or was that last year? I can't even remember anymore.
That was this year.
Was that this year?
Well, now I'm like, wait, we're still in 2020 now.
Yeah. I don't know if it was December or January, but yeah.
Yeah, still pretty awesome.
It's just the extension of 2020. We're still in there, but it's just like extra innings. You know?
Yeah.
Longest March ever.
Longest March ever. Yes.
Now, David, when you have an idea in your head, do you, or more like when you are going to start a project, do you look for characters that you think fit your body type or your persona, or do you try to go completely opposite? You know, you're a slender guy, and maybe I want to play as the Juggernaut, or I want to play something completely not me. Or do you try to get more of what's closer to you, or just, hey, that looks interesting, I'm going to go for that?
It's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. On Cosplay Stitch and Seam, we like to say that, like, if you want to cosplay, freaking do it. Like, there is no reason to not do the thing that excites you. You don't need to know everything about that character either. So when I did Michael Carpenter from the Dresden Files, I did it because I had a beard, and I thought that beard looked really great. And I thought I would pull off the father lumberjack kind of archetype. My wife and I, we are watching the Clone Wars, the animated series, and every time Obi-Wan pops up, Kaylin goes, "You need to do an Obi-Wan cosplay."
Oh my gosh, yes, you do.
Yeah.
And again, the beard helps. But when it comes to a couple other cosplays, I want to do Magic from the X-Men, who is a femme character. But she's freaking awesome. All right. She's so cool. And I remember when it was the anime expo where Pannon, you were competing, I believe. Anime expo? Because you were doing Kingdom Hearts.
Yep.
Yes.
And I remember I pulled up because we were all going to watch Pannon's competition thing on Twitch. And I pulled up a photo and I was like, hey, other cosplayers, I'm thinking about doing this cosplay. What advice would you give me? And like in the Brian Michael Bendis run of the Uncanny X-Men, she has a boob window. And it's just the only way that I know how to call it.
Yep.
It's a perfect name.
And I was like, should I do that? Because I don't have anything really to show off. And they're like, no, you should do it. You should totally do it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So that's on my list. I have a Raven from the Teen Titans on my list of things. Like, it's just, sometimes this goes, that character looks really cool. Or that character resonates with me in some capacity. Raven is the emo, icon for my generation. So why the heck not? It sounds great. So yeah, it's we like to preach cosplays for everybody. Cosplay what you want. It doesn't matter your body type. You can modify it to equal what you're comfortable with. And I know I'm not the best one to speak on that. But if you're not comfortable showing off your arms or your stomach, and the cosplay does show off more of your body, modify it to do so. And if you're going to compete, add references or extra images with what you're doing and why. Not necessarily like, I'm not comfortable with my body, but like, I feel like this would be an appropriate addition or something along those lines. And I'm really just parroting the words that Pannon and Mercedes say all the time.
I was going to say, as a judge, I love seeing that too, where you're like, hey, I'm not comfortable with how short the skirt was, so I made it longer. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's your preference. You do that.
Yeah. Like, we have had several episodes on like body positivity and making sure that we know, like, our listeners know that cosplay is for every body and every body type. For me, some of my favorite characters are these itty bitty, like the tiniest character in the show, and I am almost 6 feet tall, and I am plus size, and I just love the like tiny little magical girls, or the like Sora from Kingdom Hearts, who is a tiny 14-year-old boy. But I love those characters, and I love like their like adventures and their stories and their costumes, and being able to like, that has been a big part of cosplay for me, is learning how to tailor those looks to be flattering on my body type. So, and that's not necessarily the way you have to do it. Like, you can do it to be as close to and as accurate as you can for how it sits on the body. You can do it in a way that's flattering for your body type. You can do it to your comfort level. You can do it. One of the things we talk about is like, even if there are 500 people doing this character, do it, because the things you bring to the table are going to be unique and different, and no one's going to cosplay it just like you do.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I want to tack on to this, like it's a asterisk, is that if you have a friend who does cosplay and you know that they have a certain body type or their skin matches the tone of another character, it's not always appropriate to recommend that exact thing.
Yes.
Of like, oh, you are a person of color, you should do these other characters of color. You are a Black person, ergo you only must do Black characters.
Right.
And that's just not fair. I've
got a friend who gets annoyed at that.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
There was some TikTok that I saw of a Black cosplayer, and she did a Hinata from Naruto.
Oh, I love that.
And she made a whole song mocking the people who say, well, Hinata's not Black. Well, she is today. She is, and again, it's just her in different cosplays of different characters who are not canonically Black, and she just does them anyways, because again, it's what inspires her, it's what she finds fun. And like,
that's what cosplay's about, is like, what inspires you, what do you find fun, go be that character.
Yeah.
Do it.
Like, as cool as it can be to be like, oh, I look like this character, like, it should be your own decision. When you have friends who are like, oh, well, your body is like this, or your skin is like this, etc., it kind of like, I don't know, it feels like it puts me in a box where they're like, oh, well, you must like this character because they are plus size. And I'm like, well, I think it's cool. Huh?
I was just going to tack onto that. I know that you have said in the past, like, a lot of people have come up to you and said, you should do Rose Quartz from Steven Universe. And I was even talking about this with Kaylin the other day, and I was like, I think Pannon would do justice to Rose Quartz purely because of her sewing skills, and that it would be a fantastic dress. And at the same time, I'm never going to be like, Pannon, you need to do this thing, because it's just like, you know, you hear it so often, right? Like, I'm colorblind, and people will come up to me and go, so what color do you see? And it's just, it gets old hat after a while, you know what I mean? So it's just like, talking about it, and like, you can still say like, yeah, I think you would do justice to this cosplay, but at the same time,
definitely,
like, dead horse with a stick kind of thing.
Yeah.
So in general, the people who are in the cosplay community are accepting of this person, while is not, you know, how the artist drew them or how the developer, shaped them. They don't look anything like that, or not close enough, but because that's what they want to do, go for it. Is that kind of what the general community feels?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did you want to go?
I'm gonna go real fast. I just
go fast.
I feel like most of the community is more accepting than people think. Yes, there are going to be those very loud people on the internet that are rude, and I always tell people, they're not your audience. Block them. You don't need them. If you're like, oh, but I'm going to lose followers, they're not followers you want anyways.
Yeah.
So most of the time, I would say the cosplay community as a whole is very supportive of people who want to cosplay no matter what. Most of these comments that are negative, telling people not to do it, are people who don't even have the courage to try cosplay. Honestly, most of the people who are throwing these barbs at people are people who are scared to even put on a costume. And they're doing it out of, fear and resentment that, like, how dare this person do it when I don't feel comfortable showing my body like this.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like that's where a lot of the feelings come from. And so I would say within the cosplay community, most people, not all, but most people are very supportive.
I was going to say, I think no matter what community you're in, the people who are in it for the right reasons are going to support you for whatever you're doing. But the people who are on the outside looking in say, hey, you're a fat person. You shouldn't be playing, that person would be like a 0 or whatever size it is.
It's like, those bodies don't exist anyways.
Yeah. No, I had a friend who she made a comic book Hawkeye, and she was really proud of it, and it looked fantastic. She made the corset, she made the bow and arrow, and like the whole 9 yards. And I was really proud of her. And I remember she was walking towards like the bathroom or to go get food, and another Hawkeye just ended up walking right by her. And this Hawkeye was from the movies. And they looked at each other up and down for a moment, and my friend Ginny goes, "Movie Hawkeye? Comic book Hawkeye?" And they both kind of went on their way. And it was just a great acknowledgement of just like, I love what you did. I love what you did. And then they like kind of continued with their thing. So yeah, it is what it is. Just do your thing.
Now roll for deception.
All right, I got my D20 here. Was a 16.
It's true, like some of the best friends I've made through cosplay are because like I have seen them cosplay something that I have either done or wanted to do, and I wanted to go up to them and be like, "Hey, how did you make this?" Or "I want to do this. How did you do it?" And it's great because you're wearing this thing that you love. And it makes it really easy for someone else who also loves that to go up to you and be like, "Let me talk about this nerdy thing with you."
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the year that I took break to Anime Los Angeles, there was another break there. We were the only ones who showed up for the Pandora Hearts like photo shoot thing. So we did a break photo shoot, like
oh my
break
God.
shipped with break the whole time. Mad Hatter and Mad Hatter. It was amazing. And just like we just enjoyed, like we were wearing different variants of the costume as well. So it was just like perfect. And just like I love finding other links, other Aloys, any costume that I'm wearing, because it's just so fun to be like, so how'd you do this part? Okay, this thing in the costume? I really hated that. How'd you do it?
So you're always sharing trade secrets of, this is how they did it,
There's nothing secret when I cosplay.
Now, what about when you go to these conventions? Like, how are you with like people who come up to you and want to take pictures or talk to you? Or are you like, you try to spend as much time with them as possible, or is it kind of, I'm busy, I kind of got to do things?
Depends on if I'm busy.
I was gonna say, it really depends on, like, it's going to be different at, like, what convention you're at. It's going to be different if you're hosting events or panels. It's going to be different if you're a guest or you're a judge.
This is why Sadie steps in for me, because I'm too nice. I want to take pictures with everybody, and she'll be like, "Mercedes, I know that you want to see," and I'm like, "That's fine." Or she'll be like, "Mercedes, you're hosting the panel," and it's like, "Oh," and she'll be like, "She's gotta go, guys. I'm sorry," and she'll just like take over for me, and it's great. Because I don't like saying no. I'm working on it. But like, I try to do is like, even if like kids come up and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're Katniss," and I'm not dressed as Katniss, I will be Katniss for that kid. I was Katniss as the Wanderer from Shadow of the Colossus. I don't know how they got Katniss out of that, other than I was holding a bow, but I was Katniss for that kid.
Like when I went to Japan for a competition, they had an event called Comiket, which is it's kind of like a convention. It's mostly for them to like sell fan merchandise and things like that. But cosplay is something that you can only do outside the building, and you are set up in designated cosplay areas. You get like your little square of space that you get to stand on. And if people want to come take a picture, they will line up and wait their turn and take a few pictures and then leave and let the next person go. We don't really do that here. It's very different depending on if you're at, like, say, Anime Expo and you want to take someone's picture. You better make sure that you have space to do that, because those hallways get very crowded. It's a huge event, so many people. And you need to be able to find a spot to be like, okay, can I take your picture over here against this wall so we're not in the middle of foot traffic? Whereas whereas Mercedes was talking about when she was dressed as Break and went to this Pandora Hearts photo shoot, conventions will do something called a gathering, where people of a certain series or game or movie will all come together and for the express purpose of taking pictures. And not only will it have a lot of cosplayers, but it will also have a lot of fans of the series who just want to come to take pictures of the cosplayers. So it kind of depends. And then recently it's been really nice because there's been the movement of cosplay is not consent. Because in a convention space, sometimes people forget themselves and are just so excited to see a character that they love that they forget that there is a human being wearing the costume. And so making sure that when you are taking someone's picture, when you are hugging someone, etc., that you are asking, that you are make sure that you're getting permission, that make sure that things are okay before you go ahead. Most of the conversations I've had when people want to get a picture, it's usually like, hi, I really like your costume. Can I get a picture? Sure, take picture. And then they'll head off to do something else. I would say most of the time people are at a convention to go do fun things. So they may not necessarily want to linger and have a long conversation. Whereas if I see, someone who's just like sitting and lounging around, and maybe like, I don't know, you may not want to like bother someone who is sitting and eating, and it's the same as if like you were running into someone in any public setting and they're enjoying their meal. They're not going to want to have someone come over and be like, can I take your picture? So, sure. I had someone asked me that while I was, puking into a garbage can once, and that was probably the most inappropriate time for someone to ask for a picture. But
for those who don't know
live and learn.
Now you do. Don't ask the cosplayer who's puking in a garbage can.
Yeah, please don't.
Picture.
Walk up to him with a napkin. Here you go. You're gonna need this. Now let me take a picture, please.
Yeah. Whereas at like a panel or a gathering, there is a lot more emphasis on the social aspects. People are there because they love the characters. People are there because they love this fandom and they want to talk about it. So it's a lot more like this event is set up to socialize, where a cosplayer in the hallway or standing around a convention, it's more like a say hi and bye thing.
So assuming that you're not like pressed for time, if someone comes up to you and wants to take a picture, wants to talk to you, you're more than willing to be social with them, because that's the whole purpose of, one of the purposes of cosplay is to share your love. And if someone else loves this character, you get kind of a bonding experiment.
Definitely. I never feel so guilty as I do when I cannot stop to take a picture with someone. When I've been a guest at some conventions and they're like, we gotta go, you gotta be at this event. And someone wants to stop and be like, can I get a picture? And I'm like, I can't. Yeah. I literally can't. And I feel so bad about it. Like, even when we were guesting at NondesCon, which is the one in Colorado, and Mercedes, David, and I were on a panel, and it was really like an amazing experience because we had so many cosplayers come and we were talking about body positivity, And after the panel ended, we opened it up if people wanted to come up and chat with us in person and ask questions. And it was kind of a casual atmosphere, but it was also hard because we only had like 10 or 15 minutes before the next panel was supposed to start. But I feel like we got to meet a lot of people and really chat with them in a more realistic setting than just talking at them or like hi and bye in the hallway.
So for the listeners at home, or at work, wherever they're listening to this, is there some other like sites or places to go that if someone wants to get started into cosplay, where do they go to? Discord or any type of Instagram or anything, sites like that? Where do you suggest people go to?
So I always recommend find a cosplayer you like and start following them. Oftentimes they have a brief tutorial. And the amazing, terrible thing that the internet is, if you interact with those things, Instagram and Facebook and YouTube will start then suggesting similar things. I recommend, if you're on YouTube, Evil Ted Tested with Adam Savage, especially his one-day builds, Odin Makes, Punish Props, and Kamui Cosplay. Those are like some of the big names on YouTube that you can watch someone build something. And like Adam Savage on Tested will be the first to say, like, this isn't a how-to channel, but it's always good to see how the engineering works, because then you can like think about, okay, if that's how he did it structurally, what would I do with my materials and with my limitations?
I also love how he admits mistakes and doesn't just like edit them out. He's like, look, I screwed up. And he shows you. And it's like, we're all human.
Yeah.
It makes me feel so good. Like, I screw up all the time.
I like that. I mean, not every social media is the best platform, but like David said, you can just do a search. If you're on Facebook, you can look up plus size cosplayers, you can look up armored cosplay, you can look up sewing, and there will be a whole community there. Some of the best sounding boards I've found have been in like little communities like that, because you can post there and chances are there's going to be a number of experts who can answer your questions on or point you in the right direction. And we actually do that with our podcast. We have a Facebook group and some other social media you can jump on. And if you have a question, we have a lot of members, so the people will jump on and be like, well, I've tried this and I've done this and here's what I learned. And it's, I don't know, the great thing with social media is how easy it is to connect and share ideas, share experiences, and
like get out there and join a group. See if there's a local area. Like we here in Utah, we've got Utah cosplayers. For more general range, we've got the Stitch and Seam, Cosplay Stitch and Seam group on Facebook and on Discord.
Right.
We've got, you can find anything local to international, like Sheeprop. I
love Sheeproppers.
I love Sheeproppers. They're so good. And just like, you can find a group out there where you can start learning from, finding inspiration from, and getting all the advice that you need to get started.
Also, like video websites like YouTube and, well, aside from YouTube, a lot of them are behind like different paywalls like Patreon and OnlyFans and things like that, but things where people will teach how they have used their skills and how they have put things together, and you can actually see a visual of how they did it, and you can get a breakdown and they'll talk about how they made it. There's so many videos nowadays that are like that. So just going through YouTube is a lot of fun, honestly. Yeah.
Aside from what's going on now with the kind of lockdown and kind of lifting it up, prior to that, are there kind of like clubs that meet, weekly or monthly to work on projects, even if it's same, or like, hey, we're going to come in as a group and we're going to work on our projects, and that way you can get tips and share equipment from stuff that you might not have?
I would say there are definitely communities that do that. When I was first getting into cosplay, I want to say around like 2002, 2003, it was shortly after I had worked with a group of people here in Utah to found a local convention. And we were I was very curious about other cosplayers in the area. And we actually ended up forming a cosplay group. And we would do like competitions together. We would craft together. We would meet regularly. We would do performances. It was almost like a theatrical troupe where we would share different skills. If somebody wanted to do a costume that maybe was more armor heavy and someone else was better at it, they would either like teach the person or be like, okay, if you do this part of the costume, I'll do this part of your costume. And there was a lot of like trading and sharing and learning. I mean, there are definitely ups and downs to doing that. I wish we could have that kind of like, it would just be fun to, you know, craft with other people. What I see a lot more of is in smaller groups where people will just do like a crafting hangout. And we've actually tried to do that with our communities, is do like a live stream where Mercedes, David, and I will have a project in mind that we're all working on for maybe like a 2 or 3 hour period. And we will just sit there with our cameras on and show the work that we're doing and answer questions and just kind of chat. And I feel like it makes it really accessible if people have questions, if people want to talk about their own projects. Yeah, it's just a really fun setting, I guess.
Awesome. Now, Pannon, if people are looking for you, where would you suggest them to go to?
For me, oh gosh, my cosplay stuff is mostly on Facebook. It's the Pannonators Pantastic Cosplay, or just facebook.com/Pannonator, like Trogdor the Burninator, but Pannonator.
Pannonate in the countryside.
I do have an Instagram that's at Pannon, Pannon. I have a Twitter that's Pannonation, which is also like a accessory brand that I do. But most of it's just on Facebook. I have got a TikTok and I'm trying to learn it, but I have not posted anything because it scares me a little.
Mercedes, what about yourself?
I'm at VFire on most social media. I don't have a Twitter for VFire, but I have the Stitch and Seam Twitter. It's just at Cosplay Stitch on most social medias as well. I try to post. I'm terrible at it, but I'm trying to get better at it.
I believe in you.
Thank you. Yeah, eventually going to work on a full-on website, but got to get there first.
David, what about yourself?
So you can find me on Twitter at Crest Sphinx. I post a lot of my dice stuff and what little projects I'm doing on my Instagram at the Crest Sphinx. But yeah, like they said before, we've got our Facebook group. It's just the Cosplay Stitch and Seam group. And that's where a lot of people, we have a work in progress Wednesday, where every Wednesday people share what they're working on. And it's just a great opportunity to get a little serotonin by other people seeing like what you're doing. And just like, I like that. I really like that. One of my favorite things is like find foam people who are making foam armor or whatnot. And just like those seam lines, like you can't even tell where the foam ends and the edge begins. Or finding other people who are like, oh, I'm working. I think I helped somebody with their competition because they posted a screenshot of their editing for a competition. And I was like, hey, if you need any help, this is what I do all the time. Let me help you. Please let me help. I enjoy helping. And so, yeah, the Facebook group is also where you can find pretty much where all of us are going to be posting pretty consistently.
Awesome. So did anybody else have anything to add before we end this episode?
If you guys want to reach out to us or hit up our podcast, you can send us an email at cosplaystitchandseam@gmail.com or...
Wow, we're going to do this, huh? Or you can go to the website and fill out the Google form at cosplaystitchandseam.com or
you can join our Facebook page, join our Work in Progress Wednesdays, and join the awesome community that we have there. And if you're not a big fan of Facebook, if you go to our Facebook or our Twitter, we'll post a link to our Discord.
So yeah, I think I learned some things. Yeah. But I think I'm going to say goodbye.
Wait, I got one more thing to add. Cosplay is the creation of the impossible with the cheaply available. You don't have to go all out on those expenses, guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be kind of heartless if you ask me. All right, so if no other interjections, I'm going to say goodbye, everybody.
Bye!
You have been listening to Firing Synapses with Matt Hamady. I want to thank everyone who listened to the show. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with your friends. Also, feel free to send all questions, comments, constructive criticisms, and new topics to mhamidyphoto@gmail.com. That's MHAMIDY photo@gmail.com. It just may end up on a future episode. If you would also like to help the show, you can follow me on all your social media platforms, which includes Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it's still free. Otherwise, goodbye, everybody.